Hello everybody, welcome once again to Aprendo en Casa. I am teacher Jonnathan Elizondo, and today we have a very special session. We're going to review what we studied in our previous week, okay? So I hope you have fun, sit in family, and enjoy. Hello everybody, how are you today? Doing great? I'm teacher Jonnathan Elizondo, and as usual, I'm so happy to be here with you one more week in Aprendo en Casa. Just give me a moment. I think somebody is looking for me. You have a package? Yes, I sign here. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. All right. So it says fragile, handle with care. What might that be? I wonder. We're going to find out later. Would you like to know what's in the box? We're going to find out later. But before, let's see Paola. She has a message for us, and I think she's doing something with some clothes. Let's see her.
Hello friends, how are you? I am going to unpack some clothes that I found in my closet. I have an older sister, and my mom said I have to wear her old clothes. We will see what we can find. This is a shirt. It's actually very cool. And this is a sweater. Nice. I could wear it. These pants, well, maybe not so much. But I am surprised. She has more style than I thought. Did you know that the fashion industry is the second biggest polluter of the environment? Just a pair of jeans uses up to 20,000 liters of water. That is a scary amount. That is why reducing the amount of new clothes we buy can really give our planet a chance. Maybe we can exchange clothes with a friend, use some of our relatives' old clothes, go thrift shopping for some treasures. Who knows? The more we use, the more others produce. Being green is the new cool, and recycling is not enough anymore. We have to start reducing and reusing. That works for clothes, plastic, and many items that harm the environment, our planet. Use less paper, buy less plastic, and even find new combinations in your closet. And let's reduce our carbon footprint. See you later. Bye.
Thank you very much, Paola, for that wonderful message. You're totally right. We should be careful about what we do with our planet, right? Okay, now, before we continue with today's class, are you ready for today? Remember the materials that you need. Do you remember? I know you do. We need somewhere to write in, and we need something to write on, right? And something to write with. So we need a notebook or a piece of paper, and a pencil or a pen, whatever you decide, okay? And the space. Remember to have a space where you can put your materials, everything you're going to need for the day, all right? Very good. Now, let's see what we are going to be doing today. Is that okay? Okay. So today, we're going to be identifying important details of a relatively long discussion about carbon footprint using standard English. Also, we're going to put details in order of a relatively long discussion about carbon footprint using standard English. And finally, we're going to retell important details of a discussion about carbon footprint using standard English. All right? So, do you know what carbon footprint is? Because that was the key word over there, right? Do you know? No, you're not sure? So I brought this video from the Simple Show, and they're going to explain the meaning of carbon footprint. Let's watch.
The Simple Show explains the carbon footprint. This is you. You've probably been hearing a lot about climate change and how you should reduce your carbon footprint. But what is that exactly? Just like an actual footprint, it's a mark you leave upon the environment. No, not with your shoes, but with every action that releases carbons. Those are the harmful gases, such as CO2, which are pumped out by burning fossil fuels like oil or gas. The more fuel you use, the bigger your footprint will be. You may think that by driving your car, the only carbons you release come from the engine, but no. Consider the carbons that are emitted just to get fuel into the tank. From the energy needed to extract the oil from underground, the pollution caused by transportation and refinement, to the final delivery to your local petrol station. Not to mention the CO2 released by manufacturing your car in the first place. More than you thought, huh? So unless you live in a cave, you and everything you own has its own carbon footprint.
Sorry, I was going to eat this sandwich, but I will leave it for later. No problem. In the break, right? Okay, so you have an idea what carbon footprint is now? I prepared an image, and I found this image online. Let's see the image for the carbon footprint. So here you see that carbon footprint is basically everything we do that has an impact on the planet. We see transport, offsets, electricity, waste, recycling, of course, gas, fuel, and emissions. So my question is, do you think something as simple as the sandwich, and this is a ham, cheese, and tomato sandwich, do you think that has an impact on the planet? Maybe we can find out later, right? Okay, but right now, I want you to imagine that you actually want to talk about the carbon footprint. You will go and watch some news from CBC, and you have to report to your classmates because that's what your teacher told you about, okay? So we're going to find that, but before we watch, remember that it's important that we examine the vocabulary that we're going to look at, okay? So here I have some of the vocabulary, and what you're going to see is one sentence with an underlined word, like for example, what can a bottle contain? Then you're going to have an answer for that question, and I want you to guess the meaning. So it says, what can a bottle contain? Contain. A bottle can contain water, juice, and liquids in general. Do you know the meaning of contain? Let's look at the picture. So contain is actually what is inside the bottle in this case, all right? Now, let's go to the next one. We have, what is something that a vegan person won't eat? Vegan, that is the word. And it says that a vegan person won't eat meat or any dairy products. So vegan is somebody who doesn't eat anything that comes from animals, nor meat or dairy products, anything that is taken from animals. The next word that I have is, what can you find in a greenhouse? Greenhouse. So the answer for that question, people grow flowers, vegetables, and fruits in a greenhouse. Can you think of that? What is a greenhouse? Look at the picture. The greenhouse is the place, the artificial place we create to grow different produce. And then we also have, what is something in the classroom that requires energy? Requires. What is the meaning of that word? Let's see the answer to the question. Smartphones, computers, and video games require energy to operate. Can you think of a word that means required, a synonym for require? Yes, the synonym is need. So what is something in the classroom that needs energy would be another question. Another one that I have for you is, what is an activity you can do in an open field? Open field. So I can play soccer, grow vegetables, and walk in an open field. If we look at the picture, this is an open field. It's a space where you don't have anything but grass, okay? That is an open field. The next word that I have for you is what is a typical product that is grown in Costa Rica? Grown. That is the word. Let's look at the answer. Coffee is a typical product grown in our country. Grown. So if we look at the picture, it's actually what is something that we produce in Costa Rica. That is the meaning of grow. Produce can be a synonym in this context. Another word that I have is the word have. If your footprint is 50 kilograms of CO2 and you have it, how much would you produce? So have is a verb, and I have an equation over here. Those who like mathematics, CO2 divided by 2 equals what? So let's see the answer. If you have your carbon footprint, you will end up with 25 kilograms of CO2. So half is actually when you divide something by 2, all right? And another word that I have is reduce. How can you reduce your carbon footprint, okay? How can you reduce your carbon footprint? I can reduce my carbon footprint by recycling, reusing, riding a bike, among others. And here we have a picture. So reduce is to lower the level, okay? So now that we have the vocabulary, I have a question for you. You saw the sandwich, you saw my box, and you saw the vocabulary. There is a question for you. What is the video about? We're going to watch a video. So what do you think the video is about? Think about that. Will it be about sandwiches or about boxes, about the environment? Think about it, because everything is related, right? Everything we do relates to affecting the nature and affecting our planet. Now, we're going to watch the video for the first time, and this time I only want you to get the gist, the main idea, okay, the general points. I have prepared some questions for you. Let's see those questions that I have. Question number 1, what is the video about? Is it about growing tomatoes in greenhouses that cause a high footprint or carbon footprint? Sandwiches made with tomatoes have a high carbon footprint? Or is it about simple ways to reduce the carbon footprint of a sandwich? Interesting, right? The second question, what is the purpose of the speakers? So the purpose is to motivate people to grow their own tomatoes, to inform people of simple ways to reduce their carbon footprint, or to persuade people to buy ingredients with a low carbon footprint. So now that you have those different questions, I want you to think about that, okay? Now, one more question. What is it that you have to extract? Only general ideas. I don't want you to extract details at this point, okay? So we're going to watch this short report from CBC News. Let's see it.
I bet you've questioned how much of a difference these things really make when it comes to reducing your carbon footprint. But what can you do now to actually help? Here's an example you might not have thought of to sink your teeth into. Hungry? Well, whatever you eat has a carbon footprint. You probably heard beef has one of the biggest, though most of us don't have one-ingredient meals. Take, for instance, a lunchtime staple, the sandwich. Of course, a UK study actually looked at the carbon footprints of sandwiches, and Adisa Adzapagic is one of the authors. Adisa, what are the sandwiches we should avoid?
Well, the sandwich that you should avoid is ham and cheese, and also a breakfast sandwich, which contains bacon, sausage, and an egg.
Okay, so what if I suddenly went vegan and I took the ham out, I took the cheese out, and then I'm just left with the tomato and the lettuce? Is that okay?
Apart from the taste, that should be okay, but it depends how tomato is grown. So in the UK, for example, most of the tomato is grown in greenhouses, and that requires energy, which means that the carbon footprint of tomato is really high. Oh. So just to give you an example, 1 kilogram of tomatoes would have 10 kilograms of CO2 equivalent emitted into the atmosphere. So that is 10 times more than its own weight. But if we imported tomato from Spain, where it's grown in open fields, then the carbon footprint is lower, even when you account for the transportation.
So what can Canadians take away from your study?
We have a choice in terms of the type of food that we eat. So generally less meat. And if you make a sandwich at home, you will normally halve the carbon footprint of your sandwich.
Isn't that interesting? Now, I think from now on, I won't look at a sandwich the same way I did before, because I know this has an impact on nature and the environment, okay? Now, we're going to check the answers. Let's go back to the slide and let's see the answers for those two general questions. First question was, what is the video about? So from those three answers, what is the one? A, B, or C? It's C. The video is about simple ways to reduce the carbon footprint of a sandwich. Something like buying your tomatoes from open field tomatoes or tomatoes grown in open field. Like in Costa Rica, many of our tomatoes are grown in open fields. Number two, what is the purpose of the speakers? So it is just to inform people of simple ways to reduce their carbon footprint. So actually, we don't talk a lot about persuading or about something else, right? Now, we listen for the first time. Remember I told you we are going to listen how many times? 2. This second time that we listen, we're going to look for specific details. And for this, I have 4 questions for you. So let's see the questions. Question number 1 says, what type of sandwiches should people avoid? They talk about that at the beginning, kind of at the beginning of their conversation. The second question, what do most tomatoes grown in greenhouses require? And what does this mean? Something very general. Question number 3, what would happen if we imported tomato from Spain? And question number 4, what can Canadians take away from Adisa's study? Adisa is the woman. So I'm going to leave that there for a couple of seconds, and I want you to maybe take a picture, take notes. Remember that it's very important, okay? So now, before we go back to the video, I want to encourage you to talk to somebody. If you're sitting with your family, you can talk to them and you can answer these questions together, because it's not only to do it by ourselves. It's important to collaborate with other people. So let's watch the second time of the CBC news report.
I bet you've questioned how much of a difference these things really make when it comes to reducing your carbon footprint. But what can you do now to actually help? Here's an example you might not have thought of to sink your teeth into. Hungry? Well, whatever you eat has a carbon footprint. You probably heard beef has one of the biggest, though most of us don't have one ingredient meals. Take, for instance, a lunchtime staple, the sandwich. Of course, a UK study actually looked at the carbon footprints of sandwiches, and Adisa Adzapagic is one of the authors. Adisa, what are the sandwiches we should avoid?
Well, the sandwich that you should avoid is ham and cheese, and also a breakfast sandwich, which contains bacon, sausage, and an egg.
Okay, so what if I suddenly went vegan and I took the ham out, I took the cheese out, and then I'm just left with the tomato and the lettuce? Is that okay?
Apart from the taste, that should be okay, but it depends how tomato is grown. So in the UK, for example, most of the tomato is grown in greenhouses, and that requires energy, which means that the carbon footprint of tomato is really high. Oh. So just to give you an example, 1 kilogram of tomatoes would have 10 kilograms of CO2 equivalent emitted into the atmosphere. So that is 10 times more than its own weight. But if we imported tomato from Spain, where it's grown in open fields, then the carbon footprint is lower, even when you account for the transportation.
So what can Canadians take away from your study?
We have a choice in terms of the type of food that we eat. So generally less meat. And if you make a sandwich at home, you will normally halve the carbon footprint of your sandwich.
All right. Every time I see that video, I get more shocked because of all the information they provide about the carbon footprint. Now let's check our answers, all right? So I have here the first two questions. What type of sandwiches should people avoid? What did they say? I have a quite long answer, but you can just look at the main points. So the sandwich that we should avoid is ham and cheese, and also the breakfast sandwich, which contains bacon, sausage, and an egg. What do most tomatoes grown in greenhouses require, and what does it mean? So they require, in the UK for example, they require a lot of energy, and that means that the carbon footprint of a tomato is really high. Question number 3. What would happen if we imported tomato from Spain? Do you have the answer for that one? Yes? Okay. What would happen is that the carbon footprint is going to be lower because in Spain they grow tomatoes in open fields. Okay? And number 4. What can Canadians take away from a DISA study? So what they can do is that we have a choice in terms of the type of food that we eat. Okay? So now that we have checked our answers, remember what is the next part of the task for today? Because we had to extract information from the video, and what was the next part? It was to retell information, right? To retell what we just got. So in order to do that, we need to look at some phrases. Let's look at the phrases that I have for you. So we're going to look at modals, comparatives, and tag questions. So what are some of the modals that we can use? We can use the word should. Do you remember what should is used for? Should is used for recommendations, for advice. We also can use must. Must is an obligation. And then comparative, like less polluting than, or the best option. Tag questions, for example, we need to be mindful of our actions, don't we? And some of the phrases. So we can use the report from shows that. The report from CBC News shows that, and we complete the sentence. For example, and we provide examples. Mentions that, like Adisa mentions that. On the other hand, that is to show something that is different, okay? So now that we have the sentence frames, I think it's time for you to see what I prepared. Do you want to see that? So I'm going to show it and I'm going to read it a little bit fast for you, okay? So let's look at that one. It says, the report by CBC News shows that all of our actions have an impact on the environment and they leave a carbon footprint. For example, Adisa mentions that eating ham and cheese sandwiches leave a big footprint. On the other hand, vegan sandwiches are less pollutant. However, she mentions that tomatoes grown in a greenhouse produce more CO2 than the ones grown in open fields. It means that we should look for naturally grown vegetables, which are the best options. So, to protect our planet, we must be mindful of our actions. Okay? I think it's time that we start checking what we have done today and evaluating. So for that, I have these lucky numbers over here. Let's go and see the lucky numbers, okay? So the lucky numbers are going to give us the sentences that we need, or the questions that we need to answer. Let's see number 1. So that is number 5. How do I feel after today's lesson? How do you feel? Are you good? Are you a little anxious? Let's see the next lucky number. What is the other question that we have? That is number 2. Did I have any difficulties at a particular point? Was there a point in which you felt with difficulties? And question number 3. Let's see what is the number. Number 9. And the question is, did I pay attention in class? Did you really pay attention to today's class? Okay, I hope you did. Now it's time to evaluate our learning for today. Let's look at the criteria. So achieved, we have in progress like 50%, and not achieved if you didn't do it. So let's see the learning. I identified main information and relatively long discussion about carbon footprint by using standard English. I hope you did, because we did in class, right? Number 2, I identified important details of a relatively long discussion about carbon footprint by using standard English. Did you do that? Was it achieved, in progress, or not achieved? Think about that. Were you able to identify it? We did, right? Okay, very good. And finally, did I put the details in order of a relatively long discussion about carbon footprint to retell the information using standard English? Yes, we did it a little fast, but we were able to do it, right? Okay, so now that we have finished with our evaluation of learning, I want to see, because we got this package at the beginning of the lesson and the sandwich and everything. Let me put this sandwich a little bit over here. And would you like to know what is in the box? Yes? Okay, so it says, please handle with care, fragile, thank you. So let's see, because I don't know what they sent. So let's open this and let's see what is in here. Oh my God, look at that. All right. Oh, look at this. These people, my God. Fragile, handle with care. So you see the metaphor? We get this beautiful glove over here of the world, the representation of the world. And I think this is definitely what we need to do, to handle our world with care, because this is actually fragile. And we want to leave a good world for our future generations, right? Okay, so unfortunately, our time is over for today. I am teacher Jonnathan Elizondo. I'm so happy to be here with you. See you next time. Stay safe, and remember, take care of the world, because we only get one. All right? Bye-bye.